The WWE will merge with the parent company of the UFC to form a new publicly traded company under the Endeavor Group. This is reported by CNBC. Endeavor will own 51% stake in the new combat sports and entertainment company, while WWE shareholders retain 49%. That's right. World Wrestling Entertainment is now being sold to Endeavor Group, run by Ari Emanuel. Uh, WWE, like I said, they're going to retain 49%, but the WWE is no longer under the sole control or majority control of Vince McMahon. The deal values WWE at $9.3 billion. For those curious, uh, so the WWE at $9.3 billion, and UFC, which is owned by Endeavor, at $12 billion. This is a huge deal, folks. Uh, so far, the market has reacted by WWE shares falling, Endeavor's shares rising. Um, the logistics at the moment are that Vince McMahon will remain, or Ari Emanuel will act as chief executive of both Endeavor, excuse me, and the new company. McMahon likewise will be executive chairman, while Endeavor president and COO Mark Shapiro will also work in the same roles at the new company. Dana White will remain as president of UFC, and WWE CEO Nick Khan will stay on as president of the wrestling business. So, for those who are just curious about what this means as a structure, again, Ari Emanuel, um, who is one of the owners of Endeavor, he's going to act as the CEO, the chief executive of both Endeavor and the new company that they're going to create, which will house the WWE and UFC. McMahon will be the executive chairman of that company. So he will only report to one person, and that is Ari Emanuel. The COO, who is also Endeavor president, Mark Shapiro, will work in the same roles at this new entity. Dana White is just going to stay as president of UFC, and Nick Khan, who is the CEO of WWE, will actually be the president of the wrestling business. So Dana White and Nick Khan aren't changing positions. Vince McMahon will be second to Ari Emanuel, and I'm assuming will work side by side with Mark Shapiro. What does that mean for everybody else? That is a question mark. What does it mean for the wrestlers? That is a question mark. What does it mean for the writers and everyone else? It's a question mark. I would say unlikely you're going to see great changes right away, but rather than me speculate, let's look at the CNBC interview that has been posted regarding the deal. We'll talk about it. We'll kind of go through it a little bit. But this is a huge deal, folks. Usually I don't bother doing this, but this is probably the biggest event in the history of wrestling. I would say this is bigger than even WCW closing, just from the standpoint that, you know, this, when WCW closed, it merged into the WWE. This is a wrestling company merging into a mixed martial of the parent company of the largest mixed martial arts business. So this is massive.
Endeavor was mentioned throughout this entire process, and now you're the last person standing. Why the WWE?
He decided not to body slam me. But, you know, we've brought together in a pure play the UFC and the WWE into a new publicly traded company. It's very rare to get iconic brands like the UFC and the WWE together. Together, I mean, individually, they're incredible assets. Together with the flywheel of Endeavor, which we've built, I think makes them unicorns.
Let me say it another way.
Go.
This is the biggest thing Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon have ever done.
Yeah.
Combining forces like this there's nothing like this. There's never been anything like this. People have been talking about this for a long time.
There were a lot of other suitors
Sure they
here.
were, you know.
So very quickly, I find it interesting. You're going to hear this throughout this interview. Vince McMahon is going to reference combining. Um, he's going to talk in terms of this is a tag team. He is not talking in terms of a person who just sold his business. So he was the majority stakeholder in a company. Now he's the majority stakeholder from the WWE's pool, but the WWE's pool is 49% of the overall pool, and Ari Emanuel's company is the majority. So he is not technically a tag partner of Ari Emanuel and Endeavor. He is a employee of Ari Emanuel and his company. But at the same time, that is not, I repeat, not the way that neither he nor Ari Emanuel present this. So it's just interesting just listening to him. And even though I have an MBA, that's right, I went to business school. Even though I have an MBA and I worked in finance for and financial services for many moons at this point, um, I actually in college I majored in political science, so I'm definitely I think in terms of social sciences quite often, and I just looking at the cues and the body language and the language that he uses, it's very much a presentation of team and joining and combining, not a language of selling off, trading off, dissipating, passing on. Those things are not used. So let's just continue here, but I just wanted to point that out.
But Ari, really, the synergies, everyone was very interested in us, and I appreciate that. But the synergies that Ari brings, totally different than everyone else.
So the Saudis were said to be interested.
Sure.
Liberty said
Yes.
to be interested, and others.
Yes.
And you had your pick.
Yes.
And Endeavor ends
here
up
he is.
the place.
But you know the fun thing? We've known each other for 23 years. He, when I was a young agent, said, why don't you represent us? It was an honor then. Throughout the pandemic, we got even closer. We sold the media rights. There's a lot of trust here. But I think we've built a flywheel that Vince realized the value, and what we did with UFC, he could see what we could do with his assets. And I'll just give him a little credit right here. He saw cable when nobody saw cable, and he built a national brand way back in the day when there was about 15 different promoters out there. He built an in-house sales force to sell the product that nobody had, pay-per-view, took it public, and last but not least, I think 5-6 years ago, he went direct to consumer when none of us were thinking about direct to consumer.
So a couple of things he's pointing out. When he talks about direct to consumer, he's talking about the WWE network, which many have hailed, in business world as one of the great endeavors, no pun intended, in the history of modern digital business. Because frankly, he saw the writing on the wall with what was happening with pay-per-view business, cable, cord cutting, and they spent a lot of time and resources in building up the original WWE network. Now, and he turned that into another boon by selling the rights to that to Peacock, the rights that are temporary, not universal, not forever. So that's what he's talking about there. Going to cable, for those who are too young to know this, in WWE, the reason that the World Wrestling Federation exploded in the 80s was because Vince McMahon put all his chips on the table by going in on television and cable presentation. He really focused on getting in bed with the cable television business because he saw it as the future. He also gambled heavily on the first WrestleMania, but the money that came from the first WrestleMania, or the money that was there for him to be able to put on the first WrestleMania, came from the sale of his television time slot on Turner Networks when he was bought out of his spot there that he had gotten because of the growth of the World Wrestling Federation. This is all related to the whole I guess it was the Black Saturday or Black Sunday incident, where people thought they were tuning in to watch I guess it was Crockett Promotions, and they ended up seeing Vince McMahon. But nonetheless, the point is that Ari's really selling you, the viewer, on his appreciation, and rightfully so, his appreciation of Vince McMahon's foresight and business acumen. And really, it's undeniable. But this is just interesting to see again, which you'll see throughout this interview. He is not talking as if he's acquiring a business from somebody who just sold it to him. He's really talking about his appreciation and love of Vince McMahon's acumen and the business itself that was built, and giving him really credit for always being ahead of the game, and that he and his company are going to take WWE to the next level, and then Vince is ahead of the game here as well.
So us being in business with Vince, and now you're sitting there with a guy who's seen around the corner better than anybody in our space, and him being able to play with our flywheel, just look out.
That said, many doubted we would ever see this day, that you would ever be willing to sell a controlling stake in your company.
Right.
You are the WWE, and the WWE is you. So why?
It's the right time. It's the right time to do the right thing. And it's the next evolution of WWE. I could probably do what Ari is right now with UFC. It'd take me 10 years. You know, the time I would grab those 10 years, you'd be 10 years ahead again. So it's like, it makes all the sense in the world for all these synergies that we have, to extract all of the value we can out of the marketplace.
I can't help but wonder, and I have to ask you, had the scandal not happened,
Right.
would we be sitting here today?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because it makes sense. Nothing's ever happened like this before. And again, I'm always looking what's best for our stockholders, what's best for the company. This is the best thing that's happened in a long, long time. All of the WrestleManias combined have been 39, including tomorrow. Does it really equal to the magnitude of what we will do together?
Okay, couple of things. Number one, the deal was done before WrestleMania. So that tells me that there's a good chance that they didn't want to change titles because they wanted Roman Reigns as the champion going through this process. So I had actually recorded a video I didn't post on my channel yet, where I talked about speculation of WWE might not have wanted to give Cody Rhodes the belt because they were now being in the process of selling their company, and why rock the boat when the equity of the company is partially valued based on who the champion is, the merchandise, the television ratings when the champion is on TV, blah, 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 blah. So now with Vince McMahon's comment right there, this interview must have been recorded on Saturday, which means that they aired it. It's now posted all over the place, but the news was starting to leak out yesterday during WrestleMania that, hey, WWE has been sold. So there's a good chance that Endeavor, who became the actual owners of the WWE on Saturday, that maybe they said, hey, we don't know Cody Rhodes, we don't want him to be champion, or Vince McMahon and Triple H said, let's play it safe and not change the champion because of the transaction. So there's a good chance of that. Second thing, he directly answers and says that the scandal had nothing to do with this move. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. He obviously vehemently denies it and says that this would have happened anyway. There's been rumors that Vince would potentially sell rather than having his son, daughter, or son-in-law just take over and run it like he had. I don't know. I certainly think it's interesting, but that's an interesting tell right there because I wasn't aware of when this was recorded. I thought maybe this was recorded this morning, but it must have been recorded on Saturday because he references WrestleMania being tomorrow. So actually, this might have even been done on. This might have even been recorded on Friday.
Did that event push you towards this day faster than you thought you'd ever be here?
No, it didn't really, in and of itself, no. But it's great that we can combine all of this news together at the same time.
You know, I was talking to him when we didn't go public the first time. He and I started talking about we should be combined, right? I've I've been in business with him actually for 23 years, seeing what he's done, like I was in business with UFC for a long, long time. And so I always thought about this combination, especially with the Endeavor flywheel, that we could add on to it and what that could become. And putting it into a new company as a pure play, there's nothing like it out there. And then I also think it shines, he gets value, which I don't think is captured presently in the WWE. We don't get, I don't think we got pure value for the UFC combined. I think the market will understand it. And I do also think for the Endeavor shareholders, they'll have a different perspective on Endeavor and the remaining assets.
Is this a good day for Vince McMahon and the WWE, or is it a
great day?
Is it a tough day as well?
Of my life.
This company's been in your family for 70 years. Is it a tough day?
No, it's a great day. You know, things have to evolve. Family, business, it all has to evolve for all the right reasons. And this is the right business decision. Thus far, it's the right family decision.
What I thought was interesting, Ari, is that Vince is going to be the executive chairman of the new company.
Right.
That implies that he is going to have a say.
Well, I would have said the following. I would have body slammed him if he thought he was going to leave. Because as I said to you before, here's a man who has seen around the corners at every beat over the last 40 years of this business and has a vision for where this business, way before a lot of people see it. Him now being able to utilize what we have built in our flywheel, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I got Vince McMahon, a visionary that sees around corners. I got Dana White and what we've built. That's pretty unstoppable.
So you wanted him to stay?
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God.
Did he have to convince you to stay?
Not that much.
Would you have been content?
I love what I do. I've loved building WWE all my life. It's my passion. And to have an opportunity to have it grow like this in an exponential standpoint is like, can't beat better than that.
It's an interesting plot twist. Because
so it seems like there was a chance Vince wasn't going to stick, but Ari in no way, shape, or form wanted him to go. And it makes sense. Why, if I were Ari, I would want to keep Vince and Dana White. These are two of the greatest promoters in the history of promotions, but they are the two most qualified in terms of promoting their businesses on the planet. In terms of pure wrestling fans and hardcore fans, I know that there's an interest in seeing other people write the show and be head of creative. It seems like that's going to happen regardless. But from a business point of view, you're buying this company. Ari Emanuel, he may be a very bright guy and obviously he's well accomplished, but he doesn't know anything about writing wrestling television. We're talking about a business that he's going to have to grow to make it worth his while, and it's a company that has a contract on USA where they have to produce 3 hours of live television every week and then produce another 2 hours for Friday nights. So that's 5 hours on the main shows plus another 2 hours for NXT. So we're talking about 7 hours a week at minimum of live television, plus a premium live event almost every month, which is an X amount of hours. He doesn't know anything about that. Just like he doesn't know how to book a fighting card for UFC. So there's a lot, and that's just that part of it. There's many other aspects to running these companies. So he's not going to do that on his own. Why not have Vince in a consultant type role? And that's basically what he's going to be. He's going to be consulting him on the wrestling side. He's not going to tell him what to do. He's not going to tell him, hey, this is how Endeavor should run. This is how UFC should run. But he's going to absolutely be able to contribute something on the wrestling side of things. So not surprising. And Nick Khan can't do it on his own either. Nick Khan was an agent, just like Ari. So Nick Khan's not a wrestling writer.
Not a lot of people saw this coming. In fact, your own CEO, Nick Khan, told our David Faber just back in February, quote, Vince has declared to the board, to me, to other upper management, he is 100% open to a transaction where he's not included in the company moving forward.
Sure.
You were ready to walk away?
Absolutely.
I wasn't going to let him. And let me see, we have a relationship for 23 years. There's a trust. There's a friendship. When you're going into business and going forward, I think that's important. I'm glad he chose us because it was a very competitive situation. But for us, it's an honor, and also we're so lucky because of his vision about where the business is and where it's going.
The deal values UFC. You mentioned some numbers: $12 billion and WWE at $9.3 billion. That's a big number.
Well, here's what
WWE's market cap is 6.5.
Here's what I would say to you. Exactly why we did this, because I think we weren't getting the pure value. I don't think the WWE was getting the pure value. Combined, it's rarefied air, the two of us. And I think the analysts will be able to do it. It's good for the shareholders of WWE and for the shareholders of Endeavor. And then when you look back, I don't believe that the Endeavor shareholders were getting pure play for the rest of the asset that we had. And I think for the first time, you now have the ability to do that in both situations. And that's a win-win, which is what Vince and I have always talked about.
When I throw those kind of numbers out to you, I mean, the word on the street was that you wanted $9 billion. Mm-hmm. This values the WWE at 9.3.
Right.
So despite everything that's happened,
I'm a visionary.
well, you hit the number.
Yes, deservedly so.
But here's what I would also say to you.
Just need to point this out. I said before about needing to grow the business. When you value the WWE at $9 billion, and like he said, there's a market cap of $6 billion. When you value the business at $9 billion, what you're saying is you're anticipating growth. Where does that growth come from? Well, you're going to have to make improvements to the viewing audience to then turn around and demand more money from the television contracts, or to have a bidding war from the television contracts, which are both going to need to be reevaluated at some point. You're also going to be able to renegotiate with the WWE Network when that comes up from Peacock. You're also going to be able to demand more in ticket sales if you improve the product. And last but not least, the pay-per-view structure. Remember, the UFC has a subscription deal with ESPN and ESPN Plus. So if you have ESPN Plus, you could get all of the weekly events, but you don't have the actual full pay-per-views. You have to purchase the pay-per-views individually on top of the subscription. Well, right now, the WWE Network has a flat rate for whatever subscription you have, and you don't pay extra for any premium live event. Well, perhaps part of the growth model would be then to have a subscription line where it's more expensive to get all the events, such as the Survivor Series, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, some of the bigger events of the year. Or perhaps they go to a specialized pay-per-view model where you get the basic events like a TLC, or War Games or something like that. Those type of events you get as part of your subscription, but you have to pay $50 or $60 for the WrestleMania on a one-off, or you have to pay $50-$60 for SummerSlam, something of that nature. Or, and this would be a radical move, a full pay-per-view model. Now, if you're going to do something like that, you have to dramatically change the business, because the core audience has not, in the last X amount of years, had to pay for individualized pay-per-views, and it's not likely that that core audience is going to shell out $60 per show. That's something that I used, my friends and I, when we were kids, we would get some of the pay-per-views and do that, but I don't think that's happening nowadays. And if you look at the economic conditions of the United States and around the world, I'm not sure parents are going to be thrilled with spending $50-$60 for their kids to watch these events anyway, let alone adults spending it for themselves. So we'll see what happens there. But there's unquestionably going to be a push for growth here, because what they're spending is too much based on what the company brings in at the moment.
We paid a fair price, and I'll tell you why. We paid a little bit for control premium. With our cost cuts, their new deals coming up, which is right now, and our cost savings that we think we can extract from the business right now and grow the business with all of our levers, whether it be international sales, domestic, sponsorship, gambling, all the things that we do. I think it's right. I would also say to you is, when I bought IMG, everybody said I overpaid. It was actually one of the cheapest deals in sports. For sure, when I bought the UFC, everybody was like at $4.2 billion. They were like crazy. We've tripled the EBITDA in that period of time. And now with this is going to be UFC 2.0 as it relates to all the things in the flywheel that we can bring to them. And we have unbelievably attractive economics. The balance sheet's incredible. Our debt ratio is less than 3 times. Our free cash flow conversion is unbelievable. So I think when people look at this business on a combined basis and also look at the remaining assets for both shareholders, it's incredible.
Are you still as committed to deleveraging as you've told Wall Street that you are? You said at a conference about a month ago, we've taken the company from 8 times levered to 4 times.
Below
I'd
4
sleep
times.
a lot more if we got it lower. You still committed to that?
Well, right now in the new company, we will be at, I want to make sure I said it, below 3, and at Endeavor we'll be below 3 also times. So I think we're doing our job there.
Why didn't Wall Street see this coming? I read analyst notes which said, Deutsche Bank, we believe a WWE acquisition's off the table at this point. They thought maybe you were going to go in a different direction. What did Wall Street miss?
Everything. You know, listen, I don't think people realize, one, that Vince saw what we built with the UFC. He knows what he wants to do with the WWE and take it to the next level. We had long conversations about it. We think this is right for both groups. I think they just missed the value proposition and the flywheel effect on both of the companies.
So something I have to point out, he talked about how they've tripled the EBITDA. Just so we all are operating on the same page here. So what he means by that is the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Typically, if you have an EBITDA over 10, it's considered to be good. So I mean, what he's done with the UFC is undeniable. The television contract that he's done, there's no question that he's going to be looking for changes, cuts, and growth. All 3 of those things to make this deal worth its weight in gold. So there will be cuts, meaning they're going to streamline things. There's no need for all of the employees that the WWE has today, and I'm talking about on the business side and the wrestling side, because of who they already have under their employment at Endeavor. There's going to be, especially on the sales side, for example, they have a sales team already. They're not going to need every single person. I would say from a production standpoint, the wrestling side, they're still going to look to cut. The roster, they're probably going to look to cut. I don't know, how does this affect the growth of NXT? Triple H, 5-6 months ago, he was talking about having NXT in all these different countries, and well, that's an expensive endeavor, quote unquote. So will they want to continue with that? Will they trust them to build out that pipeline, or will they force them to just use scouting and the more domestic NXT promotion for all that training? We'll see. But Emanuel is right about the growth of the UFC and how they've done, with that and the cheap purchasing of IMG. So we'll see what happens. But this is very interesting stuff here, what he's saying about, his view that they didn't overpay for WWE. And potentially they didn't. But it's all a question mark at this point.
What happens if you guys disagree? Executive Chairman McMahon says, I think we should be doing this. CEO Emanuel says, no, I think we should be doing this, and this is my show. What happens?
Well, what happens there is we have a little contest in the ring.
Some people are going to say he's not joking.
All right, okay. I outweigh Ari by 100 pounds. So I think that's the answer.
But seriously, what happens if you guys disagree?
Here's what we said, right? And I said it to him. If we disagree on something that we want to do, guess what? We're not doing it. It's the relationship I have with Silver Lake. I would never put that, and it's the relationship I have with Dana. Dana's got the say as it relates to the UFC. Vince, as it relates to the WWE, he's going to have the say. We have nothing to do with the creative process. That's Vince's and that's Dana's situation. All the back stuff, we're going to try and do what we do. I think that's what he wants. But if there's a disagreement, that's called a relationship. We will work it out, and that's how we have it.
Let me make it clear. I thought you worked for me.
On the creative side, Vince, do you plan to be as involved as you have in the past on the creative side?
Yes and no. On a higher level, yes. In the weeds, which I always love to get in the weeds in the past, no, can't do that.
What happens if Vince says, you know what, Mr. McMahon, character,
Mr. McMahon's
decides
dead.
he wants to get back into the ring? You let him?
His choice.
Purely his choice.
Purely.
That's not going to happen.
Famous
Okay.
last
All right.
words.
Okay. All right.
Famous last words.
77.
I know we're coming, towards the end of our time, but the TV rights.
Yeah.
Where are we in the stage of renegotiating that, given where the economy is, given some of the concerns about the escalation in rights fees? How optimistic are you in renegotiating those fees?
Well, the rights fees are now coming up. Here's what I would say to you is,
Have you started the talks yet?
no, they have not started the talks yet. Here's what I would say to you is, the number one show in cable is Raw, 1.8 million viewers, up 9% from the same period of time, 2022 to 2023. Even though everybody says cable's dying, Raw is up. SmackDown, I think it's 2.3 million viewers, up 7%, same period. And the unbelievable thing is the 18 to 49 demographic is the best in the business. And the rate card is way below market by a significant amount. So when you think about those things, and in my opinion, and Vince and I talk about this, content's king. There's linear players, there's cable players, there's the SVOD players. Everybody wants the young demographic, the social. I mean, we're across the board, male, female, young, old, both assets. I think they're going to get a proper price.
And the idea here is there's nothing like the two combined. It's live. That's really a key. Because our events are live. People want to watch live.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we are a success and continue to be a success and can fit in every medium, can fit everywhere. And in terms of social media and everything else, we fit everywhere.
Before I let you go,
That is 100% correct. They are live. Live sports, live content is king because, as we've seen, people are tripping over themselves to have an audience that forces them to tune in at a specific time because they don't want to miss out and have it spoiled. When it comes to other content, on demand, streaming, binge watching, that's a whole different relationship with the audience. And what you've seen in recent months and years is staggered releasing. Netflix, Amazon, etc. A lot of these streaming platforms are starting to revisit the television model of staggered release. When a television show airs, usually that show, the season has been recorded already, but they're just staggering the release of the episodes. It's not because of post-production, it's because they've already finished. When they do that now on Netflix, like, for example, not the show like The Night Agent, that show they gave you the whole thing up front. A show like Love Is Blind, they're actually doing it in a staggered release now. So staggered release is a way to counter quote unquote live programming because they put it out on the stream. You can watch it when you want, but they're not giving you the whole season anymore. Now, sometimes they'll do 2 and 3 episodes at a time. Sometimes they do they'll do 1 episode at a time, but it's a way to to bring back the audience to where it was in the television age, where you would tune in at a specific time and you couldn't watch it before then. Now, with streaming, you can always watch on demand, but with television, something that debuts at 8:30, you can't rewatch it once you miss it. Now, live events, you can rewatch it, but it's ruined. How many of us are going to really watch a game after it's already been played? Watch the whole thing. You're not going to do that. So the value of the commercial spot, like, for example, if you're selling ads during the 3rd inning of a Yankee game or a Met game, that ad value is worth a lot less during the replay. Okay? Because if they do the full replay with commercials, they know viewers are not watching that as much as they watch it when it's live. Same thing for wrestling and for UFC. They got you hooked when it's live. That ad time is worth a lot more. So that's the strength of Vince McMahon and or the strength of Endeavor, I should say, at this point.
I want to ask you specifically about how I want to ask you about how you think about your legacy, given where you took this company, what's happened in the last year, the regrets you may have as a result of all that, and how you think your legacy will and your story will be told.
Well, let me just say that I've made mistakes, obviously, both personally and professionally through my 50-year career. I've owned up to every single one of them and then moved on. I'm not sure, the legacy stuff, I'm not going to write it. So I don't know. I want to say it's someone who had an extraordinary amount of fun, great passion for what they did, and wound up doing the biggest deal he's ever done in his life.
You say you're not going to write your legacy, but you did make that deal that you get a multi-million-dollar payout if the company gets sold, and you control your IP. So in a sense, you are going to write your legacy.
How about that? I just did. You wrote it for me.
What about that deal? People thought that was rather peculiar.
Which deal?
About getting the payout if the company gets sold, and then also owning the rights to your intellectual property so that you can tell your story if you want to.
It is what it is.
Let me just say my opinion, because we talked about this. I think that's fair. It is his legacy. He's the one. We're coming together. He's the one that you control, his legacy. It shouldn't be controlled by somebody else. And that's actually fair. A legacy, he's built 50 years. It shouldn't be held by anybody else. It should be held by him. That's the right thing to do.
When do we get a name for the new company?
We're working on it now, actually.
Very soon.
Very soon.
And when do you expect it to go public, as you say, on the New York Stock Exchange?
Hopefully in the next 4 to 6 months. So, depending on the government.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Appreciate it very much.
You got to give credit to Scott here, Scott Wapner. He does a good job of not shying away from probably some of the more difficult questions. It's not easy to do that job, to do his job, but he doesn't shy away from asking Vince about his payout that he built into his contract, about his the situation with the quote unquote with the scandal. I'm not going to talk a lot about Vince McMahon's legacy and all that. I think it's going to be written over the years, and it's individualized. It's no different than Hulk Hogan. People have mistakes in their personal life, but it really doesn't have anything to do with his character, his caricature on television, and the business. What I think about the WWE, really, I can separate that from what I think about his personal life. And really, his personal life is none of my business. That's between him and his wife. It has nothing to do with me. I think a lot of times fans of entertainment sometimes overstep in, he makes mistakes in public. You can judge it if you want, but I'm not going to let that deter me from watching his product or anything of that nature. I could care less, frankly. But as far as the legacy of the WWE, that story is still being written. I think we're in unprecedented territory. The WWE now not being owned by the McMahon family, the fact that it's going to be, first when they went public, that was a huge deal. But the fact that now, not only is it a publicly traded company, but it's a company that's now majority owned by another business. And they are coming to the WWE from a different angle than the wrestling business. Again, are they going to make massive changes to the creative process? They're saying all the right things now. I would assume that the creative difference would come from a very high level perspective of vibes of the show. But no, I don't see Ari Emanuel sitting in on talent meetings, and no, I don't see Endeavor representatives or representatives of this new company coming in and saying, "Hey, there should be less DDTs or less super kicks." I don't think that's going to happen. But one thing that's for sure is the WWE needs to grow to make this deal worthwhile, and because of that, um, there will be changes. They are not interested in shrinking the audience; they want to grow it. And I think one thing that could work for fans is that you're going to have a business come in that's going to evaluate this thing like a business. It's not an emotional attachment. So they're going to say, what do we have to do to get more people to watch this product? And whatever that decision is, that's going to be the name of the game. But we're in unprecedented territory in the history of wrestling. Um, and what happens tonight on Monday Night Raw will likely, not have a lot to do with this deal. But I will say that there will be a energy and a vibe on the show because people know what happened. I'm curious if they address it at all. I'm curious if anyone from the UFC, if they want to get really cute, if they bring anybody out to surprise the fans. I think regardless, I think they have to hit a home run tonight because I think the core audience that's left of WWE is not happy with the way WrestleMania ended. So I'm sure they're going to have to do something to get them interested, or they might give up because I think at this point you're teetering on giving up of those fans, and Endeavor needs to take those fans and multiply them, not lose them, um, and then have to start totally from scratch. But we'll see what happens. This is a very interesting time. There's going to be renegotiations of television. There's going to be renegotiations of the WWE network. There's going to be changes in this company. I would expect cuts, and I would expect some changes in personnel from inside the business side and the wrestling side. But there you have it, folks. Great interview, and a great moment, an interesting moment in the history of professional wrestling. And if any of this gets taken down, I'll upload my other video on my take on what I think will happen with the wrestling business side of things, and I'll certainly re-record a synopsis of this if it gets taken down. But enjoy this and keep having fun here in the Corner Arcade.